Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to read a post from Reddit called "Caught my girlfriend, 25, female cheating on me with an older man. I am planning on ghosting her." So here goes. I've been with my girlfriend for the last 1.5 years, and a few weeks ago I opened her old laptop to find a throwaway email account she had been using to communicate with this older guy. Explicit photos were shared, and there was a brief video of them having sex. From what I can tell, this seems to have started 2 months ago. I was devastated and heartbroken. I still can't believe how she would look me in the eye every day and tell me she loves me while fucking this other guy. Luckily for me, the next day I had to go out of town for a week-long work commitment. I left without confronting her, so she still doesn't know that I know. I spent the majority of the first day, or if town, crying and essentially mourning my relationship. I called my close friend and talked all night. Strangely, after that, I was completely okay, and overnight I lost all of the love that I had for her. Even now, when she calls me to check up, I am constantly annoyed and try to find ways to end the conversation. She knows something is up, but I just blamed it on my work. I am pretty sure she's using my absence to have a good time with her cheating partner. I am currently extending my stay by another week to figure out things. Anyway, I was thinking yesterday, and I feel like just ghosting her. She moved in with me last month, and my lease will be up next month. I could just pay the landlord the rent for the next month. I have a well-paying job and it won't incur any major loss, and move without telling her. My company has a branch in New York City, and I could request to move there, which is totally doable. Except her and the job, there is nothing for me in the current city I live anyway. We don't have any major shared finances, and the rest of the details like furniture, etc. are minor things that I could ask a local friend to sell it for me for a cut of the profit. The more I think about this, the more I'm convinced I could easily do it. I don't know how she'll feel. I mean, if she was cheating on me, I don't think she cared much about me in the first place. What do you guys think? Is it too harsh? Too long didn't read? I caught my girlfriend, 25, female cheating. I'm planning on ghosting her. Thoughts? Well, I have plenty of thoughts. Let's take a short break and then we'll get into the analysis. Okay, so for me, the most interesting thing about a post like this is considering what's best for you. Is it protecting your self-esteem on the one hand, or trying to find out as much information as possible so that you can grow and learn from the experience on the other hand? That's the most important question, but we'll save that for the end. First, let's look at some of the minor points. Okay, so let's start with the most obvious thing, which is that he doesn't owe her anything. He can move away to another state, with another job without telling her anything. He owes her absolutely zero explanation. That's the moral perspective, but things might be a little bit more complicated than that because they've been together for 1.5 years. They've probably got some mutual friends, things like that. And just leaving town without any explanation, it might not make him look very good. He doesn't want to come across as petty, but I think it's in his best interest to speak to their mutual friends and let them know exactly why he's broken up with her and why he's moving away. I mean, this woman has already caused this guy enough suffering. He doesn't need their mutual friends being poisoned against him with any kind of lies or ambiguity that she might spread about what really occurred. I know that he had the good fortune of an excuse to leave town, so he had a chance to get away from her and clear his thoughts. But what he did is actually quite impressive. I think it takes a lot of emotional and mental maturity to be able to not confront somebody in the heat of the moment. A lesser man might feel the need to confront her immediately, to shower her with accusations and show her his emotions and demand an explanation. But he didn't need to do that, which is pretty stoic. Yes, he spent a sleepless night crying and talking with his friend, but that's it. Overall, he was able to detach reasonably quickly, and that's pretty impressive. So while he's away, she's calling him. She wants to talk like everything's normal, and he doesn't let on that he knows, which I think is absolutely the right thing to do. For a long time, these two were a team. They were a partnership, and their interests were the same. What's good for one was good for the other, but that situation has changed. The dynamic has shifted because once she cheats on him and she lies to him, she's no longer his teammate. She's now his enemy. That means that the most sensible thing that he can do is to keep his cards close to his chest, because any information that he reveals to her, she can and probably will use against him. Because she lied first, he's under no moral obligation to share the truth with her. He needs to do what's right for him. He needs to pursue his own self-interest. And while he's figuring out exactly what that is, don't tell her anything. If he was to inform her that he knows, all it would be doing is giving her time to start planning and plotting against him. You know, we're all familiar with many red pill stories of women in this situation after they've been caught cheating, using that time to steal finances, make false accusations, turn their mutual friends against them. These are very real risks, and I think by not informing her, he's making a very sensible choice and protecting himself against those things occurring. Keep her in the dark as long as possible until all of your ducks are lined up, you know exactly what moves you want to make, and you're ready to put your plan into action. Now, obviously, this is not a pleasant way to interact with somebody who you're used to being extremely intimate with, who you shared your life with, but remember, this situation is not of your making. She fired the first shot. Now, the question arises, is it possible to overdo it? And obviously the answer is yes. Just because she cheated on you doesn't mean that you can beat her up or steal her car or anything like that. Being cheated on doesn't give you some blank check for retaliation or revenge, which means that you can do absolutely anything to the other person. There is a moral limit, and most sensible people know where that is and when they've crossed a line. We're not talking about revenge, though. We're talking about rational steps that a man takes to protect his self-interest in a situation with a woman who's proven by her behavior that she does not have his best interests at heart. One thing that struck me in this post is how he said that he couldn't understand how she could be saying "I love you" to him, you know, professing that she cares for him, all the while having sex with this other guy. And yeah, I mean, that sucks. Like, that's terrible. That is a really bitter red pill to swallow. But men need to realize that women are absolutely capable of this kind of behavior. They have a dark side. What probably confuses him most is how little empathy she seems to show. He can't believe that she could act in a way that so disregards his feelings, that's so antithetical to his best interests. For anyone who's listening to this video who's also confused by this kind of behavior, who doesn't understand how people can behave like this, I'll give you a very short and simplistic explanation of what's going on here psychologically. Understand that people generally exist on a spectrum, psychologically speaking, and at the top of the spectrum you've got really well-adjusted individuals, people with high self-esteem, and then at the lower end of the spectrum you've got kind of damaged and broken individuals with very low self-esteem, often with personality disorders. Not every human being has empathy and compassion. In fact, you actually have to reach a certain stage in your human evolution before you can even develop these characteristics. Imagine a man who doesn't know where his next meal is going to come from. He lives in perpetual fear of starvation and will do whatever he can in order to get some food, you know, lying, stealing, violence, whatever it takes. It would be difficult to convince this man to care about starving people in other countries because compassion for those people is just a luxury he doesn't have yet. He's yet to achieve food security even for himself. In a similar way, people who are extremely damaged emotionally and starved of having their own psychological needs met, they don't really have the mental space necessary to show compassion to other people. You know, empathy for another person is sort of seen as a luxury that they just don't have time for. Someone like this woman who can be in a relationship with someone for 1.5 years and basically show zero empathy or really take his interests into account at all is a really damaged person. There's no other way to put it. Normal people shouldn't act that way. They should have regular empathy and compassion that prevents them from doing these kind of terrible deeds. But, you know, if we had to guess, I'd say some traumatic instances happened to her in her early life, probably a pretty broken childhood, and she never really reached that threshold of being a functional human being where she could show compassion to other people. You know, that's a luxury that she doesn't feel like she can have because she's still so busy getting her own needs met. Please understand that that explanation is not intended in any way to provide a justification for this woman's behavior. Lots of people had difficult lives. Lots of people had less than perfect childhoods, but they work on improving themselves so that they can reduce human suffering, not add to it. So I'm not excusing what this woman did, not at all. It doesn't matter how difficult your life has been. You're in a relationship with a guy for 1.5 years. He loves you and he cares about you. Even if the affair makes you feel special and you feel this desperate need to get your psychological needs met, there are acceptable ways to go about doing that, honest ways with authenticity and integrity. But she didn't choose to take those options. She chose to exploit somebody who cared about her. She has free will, and by the actions that she's chosen, she's shown herself to be a selfish coward. She needs to make really drastic changes to her personality and improve herself if she wants to become a decent human being. So the question that some people might ask is, do I feel sorry for this woman? And the answer is, of course I do. I feel sorry for everybody on this planet because I know that life is very hard, and very few people, as they're going through their developmental stages, received an adequate amount of love and care. But while I have compassion for this woman, I have way more compassion for this man because he's a completely innocent victim in all of this. By contrast, she isn't taking action to reduce human suffering in the world, she's actively contributing to it. That's why, practically speaking, my advice goes out to him, because compassion needs to be shared first with the good people so that they can protect themselves. Only after they're safe and taken care of should any leftover compassion really be shared with the perpetrator. This woman obviously needs help. She's showing signs of self-destructive behavior and is clearly unhappy in her life. But first, she's got to want to change. In any case, it's not his responsibility to help her. Even if she cries and cries, makes a full account of all of her actions, and is genuinely and authentically trying to make positive changes to her life from this point on, he still has no obligation to help her. His obligation to her ended when she cheated and lied about it. Maybe if she does make a very sincere effort to become a better person, and she wants to improve herself and is really genuine, then it would be appropriate for another guy to step in and help. That would be nice, but it really shouldn't be this guy. He needs to move on. As a quick aside, very rarely do women, or even people in general, take situations like this as an opportunity to take responsibility for their behavior. How often do you hear a woman say, I got caught cheating and it made me reflect on the kind of person that I am. It made me realize how little empathy and compassion I have and how easily I exploit other people. But I'm taking this opportunity to make amends to those that I've hurt and become a better person. Very, very rarely does that happen. The reason is that somebody who's capable of this kind of behavior, lying, cheating, that's indicative of somebody who's still very low on the psychological spectrum. And for them, taking responsibility is still a long way off. So now I want to talk about the main question from this post. Should he ghost her or should he confront her? Let's take a short break and then we'll get into it. Okay, so let's start by examining the implications of his choice to ghost her. Now, I like this for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is that it's a powerful way of condemning her behavior while avoiding any messy fights or arguments. It's a sort of line in the sand saying, your actions and behavior were so deplorable that you don't even deserve an explanation. I have to imagine that taking action like this would really mess with her mind. If he was just to disappear after 1.5 years of a relationship, it would drive her nuts. I'm sure that would be an extremely confronting experience for her, which might be a really good thing. It might cause her to reflect upon her behavior. If he got angry with her and had a fight, then all it would do is trigger denial, blame. She would retreat into her own victimhood and probably just get angry and make accusations back at him. That's not going to get either of them anywhere. If he gives her something to argue against, then it just fires up all of her justifications. But if he disappears, it's like trying to fight with a shadow. There's nothing there solid to really fight against. And that's going to trigger all of those doubts and insecurities, and that might be a positive agent for change. I also like this choice because it protects his self-esteem by denying her the chance to see how much her behavior has hurt him. Now, it doesn't sound like he's too cut up about it anymore. It sounds like emotionally he's handling it quite well. But by moving away, without even speaking about it, without any explanation, it sends a powerful message of how easy it is for him to move on. Ghosting her is a very strong condemnation of her behavior. Before, when they were in a relationship together, he held her in high esteem, enough to be in a relationship with her. But once he found out what kind of a person she was, what kind of behavior she was comfortable doing, his opinion of her dropped. She suddenly went to being a very low quality woman in his mind. And moving away, ghosting her, is a powerful way of communicating that. She will be devastated. If any part of her self-esteem was based upon how positively he saw her, losing that is going to be a major blow. And that might even provide the motivation that she needs to make some changes. For him, his self-esteem remains intact. There's no shame for him in being cheated on because all she really did was demonstrate what a low quality woman she was. And once he finds out, he moves on. No regrets. If there is one downside to this situation, it's that by ghosting her, he's going to miss a really important learning opportunity. He was with this woman for 1.5 years. They lived together. They shared their lives together. And without hearing any kind of explanation, without knowing exactly what it was that she was going through and what, if any, of his behaviors were contributing towards it, he denies himself a lot of really valuable information that he could use to further his own growth, to increase his understanding of the world. One of your goals in life should always be to increase your understanding of human beings, how they think, what motivates them, how they operate psychologically. Hopefully, it's one of the reasons that you come to this channel, because you're interested in understanding human dynamics and relationships and what motivates people to act the way that they do. What's the psychology behind situations just like this one? I have no doubt that it would enrich his life immeasurably if he was to have a full account of all of the relevant information of what contributed to this situation, both in her psychology and his. Because that information can then be used to reflect, to grow, and that's going to be really important for him when it comes to future relationships with women. It's like a scientific experiment. No scientist ever says, this is too much data, this data is too relevant, it's too specific to our case, we don't want to look at that. No, if you want to increase your accuracy and narrow down your theories and your hypotheses, you want as much data as possible. And that's the thing that she still has. She has a lot of the data. And if he wants to go and learn, he probably wants to know that. You could even make the case that without this information, he's putting himself in danger. He puts himself at risk of the same situation occurring again. Because if he doesn't know exactly why this situation occurred, then what's to stop history from repeating itself? The problem is that her having something that he wants, all that information, still gives her some kind of power over him, which he absolutely doesn't want to give her. He wants to move on. He doesn't want to come begging to her, asking her for things, even if it's for an explanation or a justification or an excuse or some kind of way to make sense of it all. He doesn't want to give her that power. He wants to protect his self-esteem. So in the short term, it probably wouldn't be good for him to come back to his door and have a big fight and argument and try and find out all that information. It would be a lot more satisfying to just walk away and never look back. So this is the choice that he's left with. He has to ask himself what's more important to him, his self-esteem in the short term or the long-term benefit that could be gained by having more information about the situation. I know which one personally I would choose, but I'm not going to say which one because I really do believe both choices are completely legitimate. It's based on where you're at in your evolution and your understanding. And it's important to note that there really is no wrong choice for him. If he makes his decision, he doesn't need to take her interests into account. He needs to do what's right for him. So whichever one of these two choices, ghosting her or going to find out the information, he's morally completely entitled to make either choice. He just needs to consider what's right for him. So that's all I have to say on this particular post. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment below letting us know what advice you'd give to this guy in this situation. And if you've ever been in a similar situation and which choice you made and how it worked, what benefits or detriments it brought you, I'd love to hear from you. Please make sure you give the video a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. This weekend I'll be doing my first live stream, so if you want to hop online and ask me questions, interact, I'm going to be going through another Reddit post like this. It's something I want to do on a pretty regular basis. The archive footage of that live stream won't be available on my YouTube channel, but it will be available for all of my Patreon subscribers. So if you haven't done so yet, head on over to my Patreon page. It's a great way to support the channel, and if you want more content like this, that's the place where you're going to find it. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.